think we'll get started. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Robert. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing with Amista Vineyards, and this is Ashley Herzberg, our winemaker.
Hi, guys.
This is our third virtual tasting. The first one was kind of a culmination of our Rhones, as well as one of our Zins, and the second one was our bubble tasting. We have 4 different sparkling wines. And this one came from one of our club members who suggested, you know, we would love to do a vertical of your Zins. So what a great idea. So we decided that we would do things a little bit differently. We had the last 2 inside, and this one we decided to do outside with the backdrop of the vineyard, bringing it to you. So out here in the back, we have our Grenache, Mourvedre, and then further off you can't see is the Syrah. And we're underneath a new structure that we had built. We finished it right before COVID-19, the shelter in place went into place. So it's topped with a solar panel system, which will generate enough electricity for Vicki and Mike's home, the pumps, as well as the tasting room. So we're really excited. We're calling it our solar-powered patio. So it's kind of a fun new thing for us, and we'll be excited that when we reopen, we can share that with everyone. How is the volume coming across to everyone?
Good.
Okay, excellent. What I would ask is, what we're going to do is go through tasting all 4 of the wines. We'll talk about each one of them, open it up to question and answer. The one thing that we've decided that is really engaging about these virtual tastings, different than others that we've seen, is that we give you an opportunity to ask questions instead of putting them into the chat box. And we love seeing the engagement between the people that are on and the questions that they come up with, and even finding commonality of friends in similar places. So if I could ask everyone to put yourself on mute, and we'll open it up to questions in between each of the wines. So first we're going to start off, Ashley's going to share a little bit about Dry Creek Valley and the varietals that are known for it here in this valley. And then we'll start to move on so that we can get some wine in our glasses.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us today. So a little bit about Dry Creek Valley. Dry Creek is a really unique place. So in many, many ways, it's a very narrow valley. It's only about 10 miles long from start to finish. But within that, there are so many different sun exposures, soil types, slopes, rolling hillsides, you know, all these, you know, we make all these amazing Rhone varietals here, but right down the road, which isn't very far, only about half a mile away, from another family, they have a site that's perfect for growing Zinfandel. So, you know, Dry Creek Valley, I think if we had to choose one varietal that it's most known for, I would say Zinfandel, although we always say it's the perfect spot for growing Rhones. We also make great Chardonnay, Cabernet. I mean, Dry Creek Valley can kind of do it all, which is pretty special. So this Zin that we're going to taste today, it all comes from the same block, from the same vineyard. So we've actually, Mike and Vicki, before I was here and Robert was here, which seems like a very long time ago now, they started getting this fruit in, I think, 2004, but maybe Vicki can correct me if I'm wrong. So it was one of their first vineyards that they sourced fruit from when they decided to make wine. So this comes from the Saini family. And like I said, it's only about half a mile down the road, and it's grown up on a bench. So what we're going to taste is a very good snapshot of exactly what each vintage has sort of provided. So weather, Mother Nature, you know, just differences in the growing season, because these wines came from, you know, the same block, same winemaker. Actually, these are even the same vines, so the same rows of the vineyard. So it's going to be very like apples to apples comparison, I think.
And Ashley, how old are these vines?
These vines were planted in 1971. so almost 50 years old. Yeah, they'll be celebrating their birthday next year. So
Still spring chickens.
yeah, exactly. I was going to say the same thing. Not old at all. So, you know, there are many different schools of thought about like what makes an old vine Zin, like old vine, like, and there aren't actual standards for that. But, you know, there's a school of thought like it's 40 years or older, it's 60 years or older. So it sort of depends on, you know, how it was taken care of and how it was grown. So we're sort of right in between that with our almost 50-year-old vines. And, you know, I think we do kind of get both flavors. We get some like bright notes that we'll taste, but we also get some deeper, richer, like more quintessential old vine characters too.
Excellent. Well,
Should we drink?
Let's get started with the 15.
Okay. So if you guys have your glasses ready, you can pour your 2015 in there. And we'll talk about it. I think I'll tell you a little bit about the vintage first, and you guys can have a chance to taste. I feel like I skimped myself. Here we go.
It is Friday.
It is Friday. Happy hour. So, and then we'll talk about, you know, what we taste in the wines, and then we'll open it up to questions. So 2015 was this really beautiful year. It was a little bit warmer than the previous vintages of 13 and 14. I know. But we had 3 immensely large years. So 12, 13, and 14 were huge, huge crops here in Sonoma County. And then in 15, like the vines, there's only so much fruit they can put out year after year. So we had this teensy little crop with this like warm, just over average warm weather, and everything was concentrated into this smaller amount of grapes. So, you know, everything is just really deep and rich. And the 2015s are just like, they're tasting so stellar right now, I think, across all varietals, but I don't think this is an exception. So 2015 was a fantastic growing year. So I'm very excited about it.
You know, the one thing that I've noticed about 15s from Dry Creek Valley kind of straight across the board have been that there's a little more sandalwood on the nose. And I find that's really interesting. That,
yeah.
With the growing season being like that.
Yeah, totally.
Now, was that towards the end of the drought season or droughts?
So yes, 15 was the last year of drought. So basically we got a ton of rain in 2011 in the middle of harvest. And then after 2011, so 2012 to 2016, it basically like just did not rain. We got a little rain, but we were in a drought, and that's why the vines just couldn't support that much fruit. But you know, it's funny, like drought is terrible and we need the rainfall, but there is something when the vines are struggling a little bit that they sort of put their struggle into like flavor in the wine or into the grapes. So it makes for kind of good wines, like really complex wines. So yeah.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
Yeah, it's really pretty. So lots of like briary fruits, which I really love. A little more high fruit.
I could imagine this with some of those summer barbecues.
We're ready for some summer barbecues here. As you can see, it's gorgeous here. So barbecue time.
And in fact, I have my summer barbecue flip-flops on.
We are ready. We are officially ready. Yeah, so as you can tell, there's a ton of weight on the palate. It's so pretty, tons of fruit on the front palate, and then it just sort of opens up to this just like really rich, full, lush mouthfeel. And this block actually gets a ton of natural acidity, or has a ton of natural acidity. So it's always a wine that finishes, you know, it's never cloying. It always finishes pretty crisp and clean and really bright, which is one of my favorite things about this block.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we open it up to some questions? If you have some questions and you want to unmute yourself, or if you're a little shy and you don't want to speak, you can always put your question in the chat box, and Tammy will feed the questions to us.
Any questions? Like, where are my question people? Sarah, I know you're out there. I feel like you've got questions for sure.
Take one here. So.
I know. Well, I was going to ask about the old vine question, but you already covered that.
Hi, guys, by the way.
Hello.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. So, yeah, you know, it is that kind of interesting thing. When we talk about Zinfandel, I feel like that's naturally something that has to come with the conversation, you know? So, yeah. Anybody else? Any other questions right now? Or about 2015 or, you know, anything, I guess?
For different flavors that you're getting out of the wine.
Yeah, what do you guys think? Or what would you pair with this wine?
Ooh, yeah.
Hello. Hello. Can you
Hi. Hi, guys.
Hello. I'm Eva Ratcliffe. I'm her daughter. We have a first-time wine taster here, Dexter. Can you talk a little bit about like how to swirl and what you're looking for when you're swirling and what all that does?
Yes, I actually got asked this question just yesterday. So swirling, first of all, it's like a balance thing. So when you're swirling, the secret is to not splash on your clothes, just so we're all clear.
Don't wear white.
Don't wear white to tasting, especially if you're new. Although even now I spill sometimes. But so the reason that we swirl is actually for two reasons. So wine is alive. It's this living and breathing thing, and wine actually reacts to oxygen. So it actually helps to open it up. It binds with some of the aromatic precursors and esters in the wine. So when we swirl, we actually open up the aromatics. So the wine breathes. And, you know, we say breathes when we open a bottle of wine, but it literally like takes in the oxygen and it binds with the compounds in it. And it does, it breathes. But the other reason that we swirl, so yes, we're opening the wine, we're like making it more alive. But the other reason that we swirl is to lift all those aromatics, like all those esters that we've just like released from the wine into our nose so that we know what we're smelling. So, and in that, you know, in that same lineup, I know we're not talking about bubbles today, but you don't have to swirl bubbles. I mean, you can if you want to. I do when I write tasting notes just to like get a little more undercover, but you don't need to swirl bubbles because the CO2 actually lifts those aromatic compounds to your nose for you. So a sparkling wine, you don't need to have it breathe, and you don't need to swirl it to get the aromatics to you because they're naturally being brought out of the glass. So that's why you swirl. Did that help? Okay, good.
Good question.
I have another question. Has nothing to do with that, but you were talking about the old vines. Why are there always old vine zins, but there's not old vine other things?
That's a great question. So vines are like anything else. So I don't know if any of you have tried to grow fruit trees or other crops. You know, there's a certain point where you're not getting the same flavors and you're also not getting the same production. So after about 30 years, the life cycle of a vine severely and sharply declines. So they are not putting out their maximum fruit potential. And so like a Chardonnay typically starts to take on a very different character because, you know, vines are all about balance. It's all about carbohydrate balance. So, you know, there's a certain number of leaves to ripen a certain number of grapes. And so like our whole job here is to like get the vines in balance. So when they severely decline because they're older, it actually takes on a completely different flavor profile. So, you know, you're having the same amount of leaves, but to ripen fewer grapes. And in some varietals, that doesn't taste good. But Zinfandel, it tastes great. Like it tastes really, really good because Zinfandel, you know, is a very vigorous varietal. It throws a big crop anyway. So when you have old vines, then you're still getting like a decent crop typically until you get to like really, really old vines. But, you know, for a Chardonnay, when you severely decline your production, it actually tends to not taste quite as good. There are exceptions to every rule, and you can find old vine of lots of different varietals, but that's why you don't typically see older vines. So it's production levels, and, you know, like we have to make money on our crops, and it's because sometimes the flavors start to decline as well.
You know, and that's actually a good lead-in to what we've done here at the vineyard. Since most of you that have been here, we've gone through a big replant. We pulled out the balance of the old Chardonnay that was here on the property, when Vicky and Mike bought. And we replanted it with a new clone of Chardonnay and expanded our Grenache by how many acres?
We have 4 acres of Grenache, yeah, and about 6 of Chardonnay that we
Yeah.
replanted.
Because one of the things that we've become known for is our sparkling Grenache, and it was selected by Wine Business Monthly as one of the top 10 hot brands for 2017, which it goes quickly. And we also, it gave us an opportunity to bring back a standalone Grenache, which is pretty exceptional.
It was really all selfish. Basically, like, they told us that there wasn't enough for the staff to buy, so we were like, okay, we better plant more.
Robert and Ashley,
Yeah.
some people are asking if we're going to continue to do Sione fruit for our ZIN now that they have their own tasting room.
So that's a great question. So Sione they do make a little bit of their own wine, and they did open a tasting room, but they're still primarily growers. So they'll still have plenty of fruit to sell. So for the time being, we are intending to keep making a ZIN, and you know, if that changes, I don't think it would change because of them or that partnership, but more because we do have more fruit coming online here in our own property, and you know, we love to focus on our estate, but I don't think we have plans to change that anytime in the immediate future. So don't worry, our ZIN is good. It's safe.
And I believe their production that they have for their tasting room is pretty small.
Yeah, they're pretty
Probably
small.
half of our size.
Yeah, they farm quite a lot of acres of vineyards, so you know they'll most likely always have some grapes to sell. So we're not worried yet.
I have a question. Ashley, I have a question.
Oh my God, guys!
I love your backdrop there, Tino's.
I like how I'm in the middle of talking with my hands. Maybe I should put them away.
Robert, I've made it the wallpaper on all my computers now.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, thanks,
I
Joe.
actually when is there a best time to plant Zinfandel if you're going to replant a field? The time of year?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So there are two types of vines that you can plant. Well, I guess 3. So, but if you plant green vines, which are vines that have already been grafted, you can plant those in like late spring. So the ground has to be warm enough. Or you can plant, just, like bare root fruit trees where everything's sort of been lopped off. You can plant those in the fall, like late fall, so that they stay in dormancy and then sort of wake up with spring, sort of like tulip bulbs or something. But yeah, you wouldn't really want to plant in like the dead of winter because the ground is so hard. You want to give them a little bit of time to like get a root system supported. And then you wouldn't want to plant for green vines, you wouldn't want to plant too late in the summer just because of that, not enough time to really get a good root system before they have to go dormant in the winter. So yeah, does that answer?
All right, are we ready to go on to the 16?
Yes.
Right. Yep. Okay, so let's start by talking about the 2016 vintage. I think you'll find as we talk about these, for a winemaker, these are all my babies and I love all of them and I love every vintage that I've ever worked. So it's you're not gonna hear a lot of negative things. So I loved 2016 vintage. It was great. So 2016, we actually got quite a bit of rainfall. That was the year that we sort of started to come out of the drought. I've just told you that 2015 was great because of the small crop size and because of that concentration. 2016, we had a pretty normal, maybe slightly above average crop size, but it was still beautiful. The vines were so no water source. And I did also want to mention that these vines do have access to water, or we do have a way to irrigate them, but we almost never do. So these vines, they were planted a long time ago. Drip was added afterward, and they really don't need to have they don't need to be irrigated except in the very, very hottest of vintages. So, you know, so they do have a really strong root system. So they were very happy, you know, when we got all that rain in 2016. So, yeah.
It's like water.
They're like, oh my God, this is the best. So let's taste. So totally different notes. I'm getting like a little bit less of this sandalwood. A little bit more like high, like note cherry.
I'm just smelling a lot of deliciousness.
Totally, it's so good, but it's definitely like totally different fruit tones. Like definitely more like, the other one was like lush and really fat and rich, and this one is like a little higher toned, a little brighter fruit. You know, like more fresh fruit rather than like cooked fruit. And this is really pretty. This is tasting really good actually. So, yeah.
It is. It's got a little more of that kind of vibrant cherry characteristics to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. What do you guys think? Comments, questions, or food pairings? Because we haven't talked about food yet, but if any of you know me, you know that I like food, so we can talk about that.
Ashley,
Oh,
I have a question for you. I noticed that you were doing the vertical going oldest to youngest. Is there a reason for that?
so I don't know. I might make up a reason. I'm not sure. I think
Pull something out of the air.
yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of like an official reason.
Yeah.
I mean, that is typically how it's done. So I feel like as a wine ages, it does tend to soften, and some of these really like bright acidity notes tend to just sort of come into their own. So acidity, you know, when you're tasting or doing a tasting, acidity and sugar are two things that sort of skew your palate. So, you know, you probably would want to, like if these were all the same acidity level, like maybe we could consider tasting them in a different order. But, you know, because they're aged, well, I mean, not that old, but like a little bit, you'd probably want to start with the oldest one just so it's had the most time to kind of come together, and then start with the one that sort of takes, you know, pops the most. But I don't know, what do you think? I think this is how, like, I've done lots of vertical tastings, and, you know, you always start with the oldest. You know, sometimes if you're tasting like a Cabernet, it's because of tannins. Because if you started with the youngest one, like the tannins would totally wash out your palate, and you wouldn't even be able to taste by the time you got to the oldest one. But
Yeah, I don't think there's any right answer. We just we looked at it more from the standpoint that the 15 was going to be a little more aged fruits, probably a little softer on the palate. And as we went into the 18, it would be brighter fruit, richer characteristics, maybe a little more the peppery aspect of it. Although you're in for a real treat with the 18 if you haven't had it. It's pretty exceptional.
Robert, one of the participants wanted to ask that the question be repeated. It might be better coming from you because apparently they didn't hear me.
oh, to repeat the question?
Yes.
Okay, so the question was, why did we choose to taste in this order? Why did we choose to taste from 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018 instead of another order or instead of backwards? So that's what we were talking about. But we'll repeat the question back from now on.
Perfect.
Anybody else? More questions? What is everyone eating this weekend? Are you guys gonna have Zinfandel with your Memorial Day dinners?
I'm gonna have mine with the dinner I just made, so yes, which is a skirt steak.
Oh, nice!
Well, actually, I don't know if there's going to be any left. Your son's eating it all in the back.
He's 20, he's growing.
Oh my God, hilarious. That's amazing.
I like the 15, I think.
So, Becky and Matt are going to have skirt steak with their
That's right. 100%.
Anybody else? What are you gonna have, Robert?
I was actually thinking about doing a tri-tip on the Weber.
Grilled pizza, like,
Ooh.
yeah, that'll be good.
Smoking grill. And,
Yeah, with the Zin, because I get to take home one of these, right?
yeah, no.
Nope, not for you.
We have chocolate covered cherries suggested.
Ooh.
And somebody just wants to go to the Dry Creek General Store for a sandwich after this whole thing.
That would be, well, they are open for takeout, for pickup. Tammy, when you said that, I thought we had chocolate covered cherries here, and I got excited for a second.
Sorry.
Let down that I don't get to eat those.
The problem isn't that I can't go to the dry, like that they're not open. It's that we live 3,000 miles away from them. That's more of the issue.
Right, yeah.
No, they probably don't deliver to Indiana.
No, maybe not. We could like overnight it to you.
I'm sure you found some special places that you can take takeout.
Well, yeah.
So we kind of think it was a trick question because Zinfandel goes with everything.
Absolutely, it does. It's such a versatile varietal.
If it goes with a Tuesday, it goes with a Friday.
Only days that end in Y.
Oh my God.
Oh, cheers.
Oh, hi.
Actually, got the Landeckers here and some friends from Colorado.
Thank you, you guys. Good to
I have
see
a
you.
question for you. I've got a brisket that's been on the smoker for about 9 hours now. What kind of barbecue sauce would go with these wines?
Wow. All right, so the Landeckers have a brisket that's been on for 9 hours, and what type of sauce would go great with the Zins? I would almost think of sweeter.
I was gonna say that, like something, yeah, maybe something with like brown sugar or something like that.
How about a blackberry sauce?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'll be right over.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, that sounds good.
Better hurry.
Well, they live 5 minutes from us because we're in Highlands Ranch.
Oh really?
Colorado, yeah.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I love it.
Where are you guys? Hey!
Hey, we're right at University in Biddeford.
Oh my God.
We're at Trisana.
We're at Trisana.
Just behind St. Andrew's Church.
So you bring the raspberry sauce, we got the...
Yeah, bring the raspberry sauce over.
Hey, we're on our way over.
Oh my God.
That's awesome.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
That's why I love these tastings so much. We've had the funniest connections with people over Zoom. It's been amazing.
So
All right.
about how far away is that from each other?
It might take us like 5 minutes to walk there.
Oh my God.
Can you smell the smoker? Because most of the house smells like it.
Oh my God. Amazing.
We're waving. That's awesome.
All right, guys. Well, what do you think? Should we go to the next one?
Yeah, let's go to the 17.
Okay.
You dumb.
Anything could come out of my mouth if I keep drinking and not dumping.
Tammy, you were on mute. We couldn't hear you.
Oh, we don't know where she went. She's gone. Okay.
My battery's about to die. I'm getting a follow-up cord.
Oh.
Was there another question that came through?
Well, yeah, everybody, Sarah and James were asking what state everybody's from, and so we can put that in the comment section, or if we want to quickly go through and just mention, because who knows who else is 5 minutes away.
Well, why don't we go get through the wines and then we'll open it up and everybody can say where they're from. And then we'll have kind of open forum to chat some more.
Yeah. All right. So should we talk about the 2017?
Yes.
Okay. So 2017 was a super warm year here in Dry Creek and in California and in, I think, a lot of places. But it was beautiful. So, you know, what that means when we have a really warm year, all it means is that we need to pay a little extra attention in the vine. So, in places would pull out of leaves. Think of a very hot year. Yes, it does change the vines, but we sort of compensate for that in our winemaking and in our vineyard management too. So super warm year, but really, really beautiful fruit. Like I said, you know, this wine or these grapes always have a lot of natural acidity. So, you know, we're never like, they're always pretty much in balance. So we usually do pretty well and come across some beautiful vintages. So. Okay.
I've already.
Oh, you've already tasted. You're ahead of me. I was talking.
It's Friday.
This is always my problem. I think I talk too much.
Keith, you're the best.
Oh man.
Made you laugh.
So I actually get tons of like raspberry notes on this, like really, really bright raspberry notes.
And on the mouth, you can tell it's a little bit younger. There's really kind of that higher acid aspect of it.
Yeah.
And you get the brighter fruit characteristics, but they're softened a bit because it is a little higher in acid, the younger characteristics.
Yeah. I also, this would be a good one to lay down because I'm getting some like chewy or juicy tannins on this one, you know, which is probably, you know, partly to do with just the climate that year. But it's really pretty. I think this one would age really nicely. And, you know, like that would soften, but it still has so much fruit and acidity that like it would still maintain kind of its brightness. So I think this would be a good one.
Yeah. So this one actually, which is really,
Robert's cut off.
Which was really interesting. Dry Creek Valley is known for Zinfandel, and we, as growers and producers of Zinfandel, we all get together as a friendly competition with owners, winemakers, and taste through different wines that have been produced from Zinfandels here in Dry Creek, and we rate them. So they're all blind tasted, and we only produce one Zinfandel. And our 2017 vintage was selected as number 3 out of all the Dry Creek Zins that were submitted that year. So we were pretty proud of it.
Yeah, it was really exciting, you know, especially because, you know, we make so many Rhones and so many sparklings. So to also be in the top 3 of all the Dry Creek Valley Zins was pretty amazing, I think. So. And
that is a tribute to
the farming and the vineyard, I think. No, just kidding. Yeah, so it was really exciting, you know, and it's all, that's like a contest between our peers. So, you know, again, it's like a good comparison, and you sort of like get like apples to apples comparison of each other's zins. So it was a very fun experience. So, yeah.
So what's everybody thinking of the 17?
To me, this is mellower than the 16. I don't know. It's weird.
I can see that on the nose. Yeah, the fruit and on the front palate, to me, this still has like quite a bit of like sort of like a denseness on the palate in a good way, like in a really, really good way. But yeah, the 2016 I think is still pretty darn youthful and pretty vibrant. And that's another one that, I mean, that can lay down for a while. None of these wines even taste like they all taste like they could, you know, could hang out in the cellar for a little longer. Although I don't know if they will at my house. They might get consumed this weekend, but
yeah,
all of these have some youth and vibrancy to them.
I can only lay my wines down for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Ashley, what would you expect from these if you laid them down for a few years?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. So again, when you're looking to age a wine, you have to look at 2 things. What is the tannin level? And what is the acidity, and what are you trying to get from laying them down? So over time, because like we've talked about, you know, wines are these living and breathing things, and they react with oxygen. So when you get this very, very slow micro-oxygenation through the cork, you know, we use very tight, you know, very expensive corks just to allow this really slow integration into our wine, which A, allows them to age a little bit longer, and B, because our wines have like a lot of naturally bright acidity, like that is usually an indicator of a wine's ability to age. But do you want them to age? Because aging inherently takes away some of that fruit character, some of those really bright, really fresh tasting fruits. They won't be there. They won't survive that oxygenation because, you know, that's actually volatilizing it, you know, volatilizing all those esters, just like we talked about with swirling. So it's a much slower process in the bottle, but, you know, it depends on what you want from your wine. You know, so for a Zinfandel, like maybe you do want to lay it down for a couple of years, but I like the really bright fruit in my Zin, so I tend to drink them on the younger side. That being said, you know, if you like a wine that sort of mellows, comes into its own and sort of, you know, chills out and integrates really well, like within itself, you could age your wine. And these wines will age, I mean, the Zins, 5 to 8 to 10 years, maybe more, you know, so depending on the vintage.
Yeah.
So.
And really depending on what you want to achieve with flavor profile. So, you know, you start to lose those brighter fruit characteristics and you get more of those aged and kind of dried fruits, kind of the prune aspect of it. But your tannin levels start to go down.
The wine softens on the palate.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I like the brighter, a little more tannin aspect of a Zinfandel. So I like to drink them kind of 15, 16, 17, 18.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Ashley, so 17 was very hot around Santa Rosa and Dry Creek Valley in October. That was the year of the fires, of course. Can you speak to any effect that had on this particular wine or any of the wines?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, we were very lucky in Sonoma County. You know, the fires are pretty traumatic for everybody, but Sonoma County in general was almost entirely picked out. Napa was a little bit further behind us because they grow a lot of, you know, later picked varietals. But we actually had all of our fruit not only in the winery, but actually like done fermenting and tucked away in barrel by the time the fires even started. So our harvest was actually over for Amista. I mean, we were like, whoa, where should we go on vacation? And then the fires hit. So, you know, we were very lucky. That speaks a lot to, you know, our area and like what varietals we make and our winemaking styles, just that we do tend to pick them a little bit like with some of that acidity, so we pick them a little lower sugars. And also because it was such a warm year, that was in some ways a saving grace. So, you know, if we had been in 2018 when the fires hit, well, we picked 3 weeks later in 2018 than we did in 2017. And that would have changed everything quite a lot. So everything was picked a little bit earlier anyway. And so we were done, and the wines were like locked away in a barrel room that didn't get opened during the whole time that there was smoke in the air. So we were fine, zero effect.
And if I remember correctly, in 17, 90% of Sonoma County's fruit was in and pressed in a barrel.
Yeah, 90% of Sonoma County and 60% of Napa fruit. So, you know, when you're thinking about choosing a 2017 wine, if you're in Sonoma County, the fires are like most likely not going to be an issue, you know, for you. Yeah, but good question.
Thanks for the question, Jim.
Can I jump in with a food question?
Perfect.
So normally we would pair salmon with a Pinot. What are your thoughts on pairing salmon with a Zin?
Ooh, I love this question. What do you think? Do you want to take it or you want me to take it?
I say whatever's in my glass pairs beautifully with my meal. You know, salmon's interesting. You know, you can do it very delicate with kind of lemons and herbs, but you can also do it kind of Cajun spicy. I think that a little spicier aspect of salmon, seasoning with Zin would be amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I tend to cook my salmon on the grill, just because I like that. Yeah, like I like the skin to get super crisp, and then, you know, just to like gently cook the inside, and with just relatively simple seasoning. And I actually find that just like the smoky character from the grill, like it overwhelms a Pinot. So Zin would maybe be more my go-to than a Pinot would in that case. But again, if you're doing like a slow roasted oven salmon or something, or like changing up the spices like Robert said, I think it really depends on like what spices. But honestly, like if you like it, that's how food pairings are. And like, if you think it's good, then I think it's totally fine to go with whatever.
Yeah, I'm with Robert. If it's in the glass, I think we'll drink it.
Yeah, me too.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions for this one? Of course, thank you.
Ashley, a quick question, which is good and relates back to the fires, is so vineyards act as a natural fire break. And so one of the questions is, why don't vines burn?
Wait, what was, can you repeat that, Tammy?
Oh, okay.
No,
Yeah,
you're
so one of
frozen.
the questions
Oh,
is,
there you are.
why don't vines burn?
Ah, such a great question. Okay, so vines have so much living tissue in them. So if you think about a tree, like yes, trees burn because, you know, the leaves tend to be quite dry. They actually, every year that, you know, of a tree's life, it puts on more rings, and that wood tends to be a little bit drier. It's not having as much moisture going up and through it. But a vine is usually much younger. And we also lop off a lot of the wood. So most of it is very green, brand new wood. So like all of the shoots, so as you can see in the vines behind us, like all the things with leaves on them, all those shoots, they're new growth this year. Those were lopped off at the end of last year and they're brand new. So that's all really green tissue, and it's really dense too. You know, like vines are densely planted, much more dense than, you know, a lot of permacrops are. So all of that is just too much green tissue and, you know, moisture and new growth to burn through. So it sort of smolders. It's like putting like unaged logs onto a fire. You know, it just sort of smolders, and a fire cannot get very far. So I'm so happy to work and live in Dry Creek Valley, let me tell you.
Yeah, great question.
All right, do we have any other questions? Otherwise, we're moving on to 2018.
2018.
All right. So 2018. So this is our new release. This was released.
So this was in, as wine club members, this would have been in your most recent shipment.
Yeah, so maybe you guys haven't tried this yet, but this is a really exciting wine to talk about. Not just because it's new, but because 2018 was like this super fun, stellar year to make wine from. So 2018 was sort of like, especially rolling out of 2017, which was, you know, even though we were done with harvest, it was very warm, and it was like just, you know, a little bit more stressful, not gonna lie. And then 2018 was a really idyllic vintage. So we had a great amount of rainfall in that year, not too little, not too much. And then, you know, we had this great growing season, no like, you know, traumatic weather events during budbreaker bloom. So we had a good set and a good crop. And then just a moderate summer. So it was warm, but it wasn't like crazy hot. So all that growing season just allowed for like some nice fruit development, nice canopy development. And then in the middle of August, it got cold. It went from being in the 80s to being in like the high 60s, which I know some of you in some places are like, you know, but for us, we were like, oh my God, it's freezing. And what that did is it sort of solidified everything. Like everything just sort of stopped progressing sugar-wise. Because, you know, what vines do is they, you know, they start at very high acid and they come down in acidity and they go up in sugar until they're at like this balancing point and we decide to pick them. So what that did is it sort of stopped the sugar accumulation, but the flavor development kept coming. So when I was saying in the 2017 that that these were 3 weeks later than some of our other wines, you know, we got 3 weeks more hang time and 3 weeks more flavor development without having like a dramatic increase in sugar accumulation, which sugar accumulation leads to higher alcohol. So, you know, this was a great year to work in, and I think the wines kind of show that.
So, you know, we use predominantly neutral oak in our Rhones, and then in the Zinfandels, we do kind of a balance of each. So from 15 on up to 18, what has been your regimen for oak guns?
Yeah, so
New oak.
yeah, so mostly we stuck in the beginning with used and neutral barrels. So I'll first give you the synopsis of the first year of a barrel's life, it's a new barrel, and years 2 and 3, it's a used barrel, so it's still imparting some oak flavor. And in years 4, 5, 6, and beyond, it is a neutral barrel. So it's a storage vessel. It's still allowing some micro-oxygenation of the wine to happen, but it's not imparting any oak flavor or character. So the first 2 wines that we tasted did not have any oak on them. They were all neutral. In 17 and 18, we decided to use a small amount of new oak, just to sort of lift aromatics and see, you know, just sort of to play around with it. So we added a little bit of new oak along with the used and neutral barrels, and sort of just added to the character of the wine. So, and you know, maybe you could taste that in the 2017. It did have a little bit different character, but you know, oak, even when you're adding it for flavor, it's not just about the oak flavor. Oak actually cradles and lifts up aromatics, and it also binds the oak and binds with the tannins naturally present in the wine, and it lengthens the tannin chain, so you actually get a smoother wine overall.
Yeah, and with the 18, I think more than the 17, I get that kind of longer aspect to it, and a little more vanilla on the palate and on the nose.
So is that why these are mellower than the 16?
Say that again, Dorothy.
Is that why these, to me, are mellower than the 16?
I think that was more vintage. You know, that could be just a vintage thing. The 16 was just like this really vibrant wine. You know, I still think the 17 is like quite big on tannin, and the 18 to me is like big in all the ways. So, yeah.
I mean, I think, Dorothy, what you're asking is, are these a little bit more mellow, the 17 and 18 versus the 15 and 16, because of the oak?
Yeah.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know necessarily. I mean, what you were
I would
saying?
say that that's more vintage character, not necessarily the oak. So oak would influence more, well, it would influence tannin, and it would influence aromatics. So, you know, like that lift of aromatics, like I find these to be like very, like really pure fruit aromas, although I did in these as well. So like maybe we're spending money on barrels for no reason. Just kidding, Mickey, just kidding. But, you know, I think just that tannin development, you know, that's something we wanted to build upon. So like, yeah, we make these great wines, but like every year is sort of this learning experience. So yeah, like the 16 was tasting a little dense and chewy to you, you know, so we wanted to sort of like maybe bring another element to them, and sort of like, and in any way that we can each year, like take up the winemaking in like little ways and make little tweaks to it. So, you know, as these age, I think we'll be able to see that a little bit better and a little more clearly as to like what the effects were for like, you know, without the vintage differences, you know?
I think maybe inherently the 17 and 18 were a little juicier in the mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 17
Great
was a very warm year, and then 18 was, you know, again, that long hang time, which led to sort of more juicy characters. And
yeah.
What do you guys think of this? Question?
To our palate, the 18 is rounder, more fruit forward, a juicier mouthfeel than the 17.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the 15 and the 16, but you know, unfortunately, your audio was breaking up. So was there no new oak or was it just neutral oak in the 18?
Oh, 18 has 25% new oak.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But compared to the 17, same
Oh,
percentage?
it's just, I think it's the same amount of oak approximately.
Yeah, both of these
Okay.
were about 25% and
Yeah.
these were neutral.
And,
Okay.
and used. These had some used barrels on them.
So then is it just that it's a very young wine and it needs to come into its own, or is it truly, rounder, more juicy mouthfeel?
I think it is rounder and more juicy, but that is not a characteristic of the barrels. That was the vintage. So that 3
Okay.
weeks of hang time that we got in our grapes in our vineyard, that just allowed all this flavor development. Normally it gets to a certain sugar level and, we're sort of like, you don't want the alcohol to get too high, so you sort of pick. And this year we got to really hone in on what flavors we wanted to pick at. And I think that's why this wine is like really fat, really unctuous, really round, really fruit forward and expressive over some of the other vintages.
Okay.
One of the things that I love to see is when Ashley is looking at harvest time is what are the sugar levels, but she's also doing samples, tasting them, and to see really what is the flavor of the fruit, because that really carries over to what we end up putting in the bottle. So it's not all science. It's really about the magic and the flavor that the winemaker's trying to obtain in the wines themselves. So it's science, it's magic.
Yeah. Little science, little art, you have to have the balance. You can't just make wine based on numbers, but you can't just make wine based on flavors too, because you can run into problems that way too. So you sort of put them together and they sort of play off each other.
Let's jump in.
Can you guess as to how long this 18 flavor will last? I mean,
That's a good question.
similar next year, because I personally really like it.
Yeah.
It's different, but I'm from a ZIN, but I really, really like it. And I like things a little bit more fruit, but not too much fruit, but I really like the flavor.
Yes, so I think this,
Are we back?
are we back? Did we freeze?
Yes.
Okay. So I think this wine will maintain that fruitiness and that character for about 5 years, and then you might start to see some softening and mellowing, and like Robert was saying, changing from really bright, vibrant fruit to more of like pruny fruit character. So I would drink it before like 2023 to like really hold on to that like really beautiful impacting fruit.
Okay.
If you
Okay,
can hold on to it that long.
Yeah, I was like, if you can, if that's possible.
Exactly. Exactly.
Does that,
We have some wine to work through.
What was that, Dorothy?
does the 2018 have more sugar?
No, they're all dry by like palate standards. So they're all under 2 grams per liter of residual sugar.
And I can see why you would ask if there was a higher sugar level in the 18, because it is, it's just like this super juicy mouth to it.
Yeah, it's really fruit forward and really fruit expressive, and yeah, it does sort of taste like it's got residual sugar, but it doesn't. So, which is nice. You can drink more of it.
It was fun when we tasted this with the staff, and Ashley ran us through all the new releases. Everybody was like, "Wow, this is incredible."
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah, it definitely has like a big depth of character with blackberries high, sort of. It's really pretty delicious. But also, again, like even though this has so much fruit, it also still has really nice balanced acidity. It doesn't feel cloying or anything, even though it does have so much fruit. So.
Now, I know that some of our other wines we have bottled a little bit earlier because the fruit had
This was one of
characteristics.
them.
So this was.
Yeah, so we bottled this. Another difference is that usually we age our ZINs for about 18 months in barrel before we bottle. We actually aged this for 11 months, and then we bottled it because it had such pretty fruit. I wanted to try to preserve that fruit character. So we didn't let it age quite as long as we typically would. So in barrel, and I think that helps to like preserve that vibrancy of fruit.
So this was a great progression of the evolution of the ZIN. What do you expect for 2019?
Great question.
Good question.
Love that.
So what do we expect for 2019?
Yeah, so our 2019s are in barrel right now. So, you know, we do know how they taste. 2019 was, again, a little bit warmer of a year, but really, really pretty year. And we are talking about, you know, whether we should bottle that one a little bit early and maintain some of the fruit character. But I'm getting right now, I'm trying to think if it like tastes like one of these. I'm not sure. It's sort of like a mix of like sort of bright cherry fruit, and maybe like a little bit of like a fresh picked blackberry. Not quite like this one's like a blackberry pie. The 2018 is like blackberry pie, but that one's more like a fresh, like really fresh fruit at this point. But you know, it's still quite young. It still has, even if we bottle it early, it still has another like 3 months. And if we bottle it, you know, after harvest, it's got like another like 8 months or 7 months. So it's got a little time.
So Ashley, I love trying to hear about your process. So, okay, we're talking about the same block in the same, like an individual year, right? So how much leeway does that give you as a winemaker? Like you can't blend it with anything else really. So I would love to know, do you feel like you've got a lot of freedom, you know, you're just translating from nature, or are you like, oh no, this is not so good? Or like, I would just love to know your process working within, I would say, a lot of constraints.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, so the question was, what is my process to, you know, to work with what I'm given in a particular vintage, especially for a wine that's not blended. You know, this is 100% each vintage block, you know, all the things. So what my style is, and I think what Amista's style is really letting each vintage and vineyard shine. So like, what is a snapshot of that vintage and vineyard? So that sort of takes a little bit of the pressure off, where you're like, you know, I don't need to manipulate it that much. You know, we try to be minimally, you know, like minimally interventionist and not try to like force something into another box. But within that, there are millions. Like every single day, there's a decision, particularly tannin. So even though you want to have this like really specific snapshot, you still need to like work within your vintage and like make all these decisions. So I feel a lot of freedom within that. It's a good balance of like what the grapes want. It's like sort of sussing out what they want to be and making the decisions around that, you know?
You know, and that's actually a great question, Sarah. Thank you.
Sarah asks a good question, always.
But it is, I mean, for Ashley, it's the artistry of winemaking. You know, you can go to the grocery store and you can buy the same wine every vintage and it always tastes the same. And that's what you expect. But, you know, when we're under 3,000 cases, you know, in some years we only make 1,200 cases of wine. You're not going to get this because we don't distribute. It's only available through the tasting room and through our wine clubs. That people that join our club is that they appreciate the vintage variations in the stylistic aspect of it, because it's not about manipulating each of the vintages to taste the same every year. That you appreciate how Mother Nature and artistry can work together to create these incredible wines.
Yeah, we more want to have like a snapshot of each vineyard, vintage, and varietal in like its moment and place in time, you know, like what was the 2017 Zinfandel, you know, from Saini Vineyards, like what was it doing? Like what was like the quintessential like essence of it? And that's what you get to taste, you know. It's less about like me like making it be something and less about it like wanting to taste like anything else. We just want it to taste like itself, you know. We want it to taste like where it came from. but then there's like so many decisions around that to make it taste like where it came from. But you know, again, like winemaking just sort of does its thing. It's like, it is like very minimal intervention for our style, so.
I just want to tell you that I think restraint is quite a skill. And so the fact that I don't know, I'm just saying you're being very modest right now. That's all. I think you're quite skilled at letting the grapes shine. So that's all I have to say about that.
Oh, you were so sweet. Thank you. I paid her to say that, by the way, everyone.
So I think Dave Bouvier raised his hand. Tammy said that you may have a question.
Can I ask a question, please?
Ashley, I have a question for you. Does Saini produce any other varietals, grow any other varietals?
Yes, Saini grows a ton of varietals. They grow, I mean, everything: Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc, Cab, Zin, Syrah, Carignan, Grenache, Sangiovese, Merlot. They grow a lot of things.
They grow Viognier?
We tried spell
I'm sorry?
They grow Viognier?
They do not grow Viognier, actually. There are only two white varietals: are Chenin Blanc and Sauvignon Blanc.
One of
So
the,
surprisingly.
there's a winery, which shall not be named, that mixes a little bit of Viognier in with a Zin. And they make a lot of different Zins. And that Zin by far is our favorite. So it's just a small amount. It's a similar kind of thing to blending a little Viognier in raw. So it stabilizes the color, and it also brings out some interesting character to the wine without making it feel like it's bimodal. So anyway, I was just curious if you thought about playing around with a little Viognier, both for your Syrah and maybe even try it with Zin.
But it's like,
You know, we actually have talked about that. You know, we don't have any Viognier planting, or like we would have to buy fruit. But yeah, we have talked about that. And yeah, I do like adding, I mean, in the past, adding a little bit of white grapes because the peptides do help that color in red grapes, you know, in like a naturally enzymatic way. But, you know, that's not what we have done. But again, like there's always room to grow and explore, and that's sort of what makes this fun.
Who knows, Dave, what's going to happen in the future?
Exactly.
A lot of this is we're getting great feedback from our members
Totally.
on things that they would like to see.
Yeah.
So Ron and Leslie, you had a question?
Yes, please. So, first of all, I agree. Ashley, you are so modest and such an amazing winemaker. No, and you're
so sweet.
Young and knowledgeable. So thank you so much. But I was wondering, what was I wondering? Oh, how long have you been a winemaker? Sorry.
Oh, how long have I been a winemaker?
And how
What
long
time
have
is
you
it?
been that, which we love? Oh. You might have to repeat that because we're not getting you.
The question is, how long have I been making wine? So, how long have I been doing this and making wine?
Oh, we just froze.
Oh, hang on.
Hold on,
Yes.
we're coming back. Okay,
Oh, okay, we're
there we
back.
go.
Okay. So again, question was, how long have I been making wine? So I have been working in the wine industry for 15 years, and I've been making wine here at Amista. This will be my 10th harvest here. So for 10 years, since 2011 harvest, all the wines have been made by me. And that being said, though, we make our wine at a winery that I used to work at. So I've been working with the same grapes for Mike and Vicky for Amista since 2007. So wonderful. Yeah, so for a very long time.
You're incredible.
And she's only 20.
And I'm only 20 years old.
You look about maybe 26, so I was thinking, yeah.
That's what I was going for.
And
I really appreciate that. I'm taking that.
I really do.
I got carded the other day and I was so excited, but I think it was only because I had a mask on. I took it though. I was like, okay.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right. Any other questions? Or?
Yeah, so I think if we want to open it up, I think the suggestion about letting everybody know where you're from and whether you're a wine fan, we would love to hear that.
Yeah.
Duh. Oh, sorry.
Ashley, I wanted to just clarify one thing. Karen pointed out that I think I misspoke. I meant the favorite wine from that other winery was one blended. Not our favorite overall, and definitely we
Well, that's what I took it as. Don't worry. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, totally. No, but I think that brings up a good point. You know, when you are small, you know, Robert mentioned that we're a very small winery. Like, we do very small lots, but we have so much room to sort of play. You know, like, as you guys know, with our sparkling wines, you know, we have a sparkling Mataro, which is Mourvedre grapes, and, you know, we just made a rosé. So sort of whatever, you know, we can dream up, as long as we have Vicky and Mike on board, you know, we can do, and that makes it really fun. So I'm not saying that we won't be adding white grapes to something in the future.
And, you know, and that's the thing that I love about a small family winery, is that you get to be creative. You can do small lots. Ashley and I can stand out in the middle of the vineyard and go, okay, you know what? We've got extra fruit here. We've got low yield here. What can we do? And we get to bring that to you, and we love to be able to share it with you. Our excitement, our passion for what Amista is all about. And, you know, it's friendship. And we truly value every bit of it.
And I really like making wine, so you guys have to keep drinking it so I can keep making more of it.
She knows it now, because we're not.
What did you guys say?
Robin,
sorry.
I heard you mention twice as an excuse for the frequency of tipping the glass that it was Friday. I'm just wondering what you say on Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday.
We're like, well, it's Thursday.
TGIW, TGIM.
I mean, guys, it's work for us.
TGIF.
Like,
It looks so work.
we work very hard here. Can you tell?
We work very hard and we play very hard.
True.
So, question for you: what is the latest word on the possibility of wineries and tasting rooms opening?
Yes. Good
Yeah,
question.
that's a really good question. You know, there's a lot of hurry up and wait. Thank you. And it's Dave, right? Doug, Dave?
Paul.
Paul, sorry.
Paul. My mother called me Daniel,
Very
but
well. The screen is very far away.
We can't see well, and we try to remember where everybody's from, and that's where we need to get to that step. No, you know, it's interesting because we're in a state where California and Sonoma County have not come together with agreeing on what the protocol is going to be. We're still seeing a rise in new cases. So protocol has been set that when the rise in new cases has declined, that we'll start to reopen different areas of essential services. And we, you know, wineries, bars, all of those are not considered essential services. And then there's going to be phases that we'll have to consider. So we're putting together kind of action plans about reopening. Silicon Valley Bank put together a study saying wineries probably won't open until June 1st. And it's looking more like that, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But we've got some great new experiences that we've created that are engaging, that are about our property, which includes bottle service and enjoying this incredible solar-powered patio and our petanque court and vineyards and wine club.
Creekside experience.
Yeah, our new Creekside experience for our wine club members. We're so excited about it. We've been talking for the last couple of years about utilizing that great asset that we have.
I've been testing it out for you guys like every afternoon. Don't worry.
So, you know, we're hopeful that it's going to happen soon, but we want to make sure that when ready. We are ready, but
we're ready.
Everybody needs to be ready.
Right, when it's
to
safe
reopen.
and you know we're gonna follow all the protocols and provide a really great experience for you guys. So you can look forward to that, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys again.
Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Hello. We wanted to say hi. We're Dave and Gail Thomas from Harford County, Maryland. And we have my daughter, Ruben, from Penn State here. We're the ones who scheduled to come visit in 17 and 19, and we got canceled both times by the fires. So we're kind of scared. We're kind of afraid to schedule again. We don't want to bring any more bad luck, but
oh gosh.
we're eventually going to get there. We've canceled 2 trips. Our daughter Sarah has been a member there for years, and so have we. So we really enjoy your wine. In fact, when we were the people of the month, whatever you call it, we picked Zinfandel because that is our favorite. So we were really excited about doing this with you today.
Oh, I love to hear that. Well, thank you for being here, and let us know when you come to visit.
Yeah, we actually bought some of this to take to our daughter's rehearsal dinner, so they all.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, she lives in Philadelphia now.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Well, it's so important for us to hear where people are sharing Amista.
I love it.
We're near Baltimore, Maryland. We're opened up a little bit here, but still everything pretty much closed.
Yeah.
My 2 favorite.
Well, we don't share our wine with anybody. We're keeping it all except for our daughters.
Oh my gosh, love that. That's awesome.
Dave, you seem like a really nice man, and speaking for the rest of Sonoma County, I'd encourage you to buy your wine through the mail. And if you do come out, don't make reservations, just make it a surprise.
Oh, come on, Joe.
Joe's fired.
So I don't know, are Vicki and Mike still on? Vicki, did you want to say anything to the group?
I'm here. I've been lurking in the background. Hey, everybody. Hi. Well,
So Vicki and Mike are the proprietors of Amista Vineyards and our families.
Mike's outside playing with the dogs and they're being really noisy, so hopefully they don't start barking. But I didn't want to be on camera because I'm not drinking ZIN.
Oh.
Anybody who knows me, I do like ZIN, but I'm a bubbles girl.
He loves their bubbles.
Too early in the day for me to start drinking red wine. So anyway, but bubbles is a really perfect thing to toast with. And I would just like to say thank you to all of you. I've had a blast listening to you and hearing your questions and seeing you laugh. And so thank you for being part of our family. We love having you. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Cheers. Thank you, everybody.
So one last thing that I want to say is, as we're moving into summer and we're planning for all of our summer barbecues, we have amazing wines that would pair with every occasion. So if it's Zinfandel, if it's our Trace, which is our GSM blend, our standalone Grenache, our Chardonnay, the 18 Chardonnay, 17, 16 are incredible for, ice cold, great refreshing things. We have a little bit of our Rosé de Trace left. That's gone out the door quickly. That was our brainchild.
Yeah.
In our sparkling wines, they're absolutely sensational and are a hit with every event. Know that you put a case together and it's $5 shipping no matter where you are in the US. So email our tasting room. You can even respond to the email that I sent everybody with the link, tr@amistavineyards.com, and let us know what you would like us to put together for you and get out to you. And we'll make sure that if it's temp control, so that we're sending in a temperature control truck to the closest depot, we want to make sure that we get the wine to you in great condition so that you can enjoy it through the summer. So take advantage of all of these. And those that aren't part of our wine club family, we would love you to be part of it. The 18 is wine club exclusive. So if that was something that really hits your palate, join the club, and we would love to send that to you. We've got some pretty exceptional wines and a great winemaker.
Thanks, Robert.
So, Vicki, thank you so much for being on. We love all of you.
Thank you, guys.
We couldn't do this without your support, and it's all about friendship.